midst of crisis. We have lost so many souls in Southern Cameroon. 30,000 or more has been perished, killed by a foreign nation that has no legal authority over the people of Southern Cameroon. And yet, the world community and the belief that the purpose in which international community was created, and when I refer to, I'm referring to the United Nations. The United Nations was formed in 1945, and the purpose, while it was formed, to maintain peace and security. It did maintain peace and security, but when the leaders turned to deviate from the original objective in which it was created, what happens? The result is the outcome of people fighting, because people change the truth, and false untruth become the key fact in which they dwell upon. And that is why the people of Southern Cameroon are fighting today to reclaim their sovereign territory. Of course, there are different categories of crisis. Southern Cameroon, because La Republique has not focused on the truth, because they are aware that the truth is not in favor of La Republique du Cameroun, and yet they choose their action. Imagine that when France was invading, when I'm talking France, let me go by the key point. The key point is that the UPC wing was supposed to be the winner of, or the party that should, or the majority party in La Republique du Cameroun. But because of the philosophy of the UPC, which was contrary to the wishes of the France, and because of that, France began a guillotine. When I talk about guillotine, I'm referring to the Louis XVI, 18, a new form of massive killing that were executed in France. That method was introduced in La Republique du Cameroun by France. A guillotine is a method in which a human head was chopped up in a form called guillotine that was introduced in several centuries in France during the Age of Enlightenment, or during the age, when I talk of the Age of Enlightenment, I know that we often refer to Britain as a whole, but it refers to a revolution that occurred against the people who believed that their power came from God and could not be questioned by someone or else. And so when people started questioning that legality of that authority, so they start what they call a guillotine, in which people's heads were chopped off. So in the time when people's heads were being chopped off in La Republique du Cameroun, the people of La Republique du Cameroun took an asylum. The people of La Republique du Cameroun took an asylum in Southern Cameroon territory, seeking for safety. And that was the member of the UPC, because France military were chasing them out of La Republique, because they were the actual party that should have formed a government, not the other way around, not Ahidjo. But because Ahidjo was moderate and just answering yes sir, yes sir, so France chose Ahidjo rather than the voice of the people of La Republique du Cameroun that was being led by the UPC, that present a reform. That is why democracy never existed in La Republique, because France never allowed democracy to materialize in La Republique du Cameroun, whereas in Southern Cameroon, there was a democracy in Southern Cameroon. So now, why does the world believe that the people of Southern Cameroon, a people with a government, but before let me dwell on the people with a government, let's go back because this is very important. Because until the United Nations and the world community, United States, Britain, France, and all of the people of the international community recognize that they did wrong, and recognize this wrong, and change the wrong, and to a full implementation of the what is right. The United Nations Charter, the United Nations Resolution says those territories that were under the colonial administrator be given their rightful independence. Very important. Those territories that were under the colonial administration be given their rightful independence. That was the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV. It did not say certain territory be given their rightful independence. It wasn't a selective purpose. It was all those territories that were under the colonial administration be given their rightful independence. Southern Cameroon is a colonial territory. It didn't say that it mattered of the number of population, because if the question regard to the number of population, Southern Cameroon meet the criteria if in terms of population, because Equatorial Guinea did not have the number of population. Israel, although Israel was not a colonial territory, but did not have the same number of population that Southern Cameroon has. Why is it that Southern Cameroon cannot have its sovereign territory? And I'm going to dwell on why. But before I deal with that, let me clarify the United Nations resolution. That those territories that were under the colonial master be given the rightful independence. Southern Cameroon is a colonial territory. Southern Cameroon has a people, and Southern Cameroon has its boundary, and they were under the colonial administrative authority, Britain. So if Southern Cameroon meet the criteria of the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV, then that should have been implemented. Southern Cameroon were being administered by a British representative at Enugu House of Assembly in Nigeria, whereas La Republique du Cameroun were being administered by the French authority or the French colonial administrator. That was in La Republique. It did not have any relationship existed between the people of Southern Cameroon and La Republique du Cameroun. The British administrative authority, on a false assumption, on a false pretext, on a false argument that the people of Southern Cameroon did not have economic stability to be able to meet the criteria of a sovereign nation. That was a poor judgment or argument by a British foreign representative. In fact, the economic capital of Southern Cameroon was more than the economic capital of La Republique du Cameroun. The economic capital of Southern Cameroon were more than the economic capital of Equatorial Guinea. The Commonwealth Office, under the auspices of the British Queen of England, provides subsidies to its overseas territory. The opportunity, provide subvention and assistance to its overseas territory. The people of Southern Cameroon did not get any overseas economic supply because the Southern Cameroon has excess surpluses in its balance sheet and therefore did not need any subvention from the British administrative authority. And the reason why British was arguing on that false pretext was because France, because of a rural territory, Britain wanted the injustice. Why British? Well, let me bring the British representative so that when I'm talking, they understand exactly what I am talking about.
On avait la possibilité de les intégrer directement dans le système francophone qui était celui de la majorité du peuple.
Okay. So the British Commonwealth Office knew that Southern Cameroon has a balance sheet excessive, more than the balance sheet of La Republique du Cameroun, more than the balance sheet of Equatorial Guinea that we have in the same structure required by the United Nations to gain their independence. Now, here is the goal, the objective, or the frame. What should be at the United Nations? There were three criteria that should have been. Do you opt for an independent state? Do you opt for an independent state joining the Republic of Nigeria? Do you opt for an independent state joining La Republique du Cameroun? Do you opt for an independent by staying neither of the two category? That category has never been provided to the people of Southern Cameroon, whether do they wish to become an independent state. But in the first place, before bringing those three questions of argument, it shouldn't have existed in the first place. That's a violation of the sovereign state of Southern Cameroon by the British administrative authority. Why should? Because those options were never presented to La Republique du Cameroun. Those options were never provided to La Republique du Cameroun. Why did it have to be asked on the people of Southern Cameroon? That was an injustice instituted by the British government on behalf of the sovereign people of Southern Cameroon. Of course, you saw what is going on, like what Biden accidentally spoken on the Taiwan case that brought a condemnation from China. But that is a key fact. That's the factual things that the Taiwanese wanted. After British living with Taiwan for 150 years, they expect them to just go a rolling carpet and live with China, a communist country, just as it is. That is something that is an absurd, that British government shouldn't have even mentioned or accept that principle, that they recognize the sovereign state of Taiwan. And so the people of Southern Cameroon are faced with this similar injustice instituted by the British government on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon. Right just in the middle of me on this broadcast is Dr. John Foncha, the second Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Initially was Dr. Endele, who became the first Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. And you have Endele, you have Foncha, and then third, you have Joa. Today, as you see see the homes being burned by La Republique du Cameroun. We see the injustice mainly upon the people of Southern Cameroon. It shouldn't have existed in the first place. This is a documentation of the Constitution of Southern Cameroon. This is a valid document, represent the spirit of the government existed in Southern Cameroon territory. Why is it that the world choose the wrong and dwell on the wrong, and the wrong become the key fact that they accepted as a reality? But now, this is the document or the Constitution of Southern Cameroon. This Constitution of Southern Cameroon was put in place in 1960. This did not have La Republique as a part of Southern Cameroon territory. The British government recognized this document. La Republique was not part of this document. Why is it that Britain, out of a blue, choose morally wrong, implement it on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon? And yet, when we speak up, it doesn't matter to them that it is something they need to put on discussion. The United States has the ability, to decide that what is wrong, what was done wrong, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place, and recognize that something has to be done. But United States choose to dance on the tune of the wrong, and that is why human souls are being killed because of an injustice mainly upon the people of Southern Cameroon. The first schedule, the order of council revoked the order in the second schedule. The oath of an affirmation of the due execution of the office of the commissioner. The Queen, the most highly majesty in council, Her Majesty, by virtue and in exercise of the power in behalf of the Foreign Jurisdiction Act of 1890, paragraph A, otherwise in Her Majesty, is very pleased with the advice of Her Privy Council to order, and is hereby ordered as follows. This memorandum or the law did not cite any of part of La Republique du Cameroun in this document. It did not. Let's look at the citation. Let's look at the citations and the commencement and the revocation. On paragraph 1, the order may be cited as the Southern Cameroons Constitution Order in Council of 1960. This order may be cited in Southern Cameroon Constitution, the Order in Council. Paragraph 2, the order shall come into operation on the first day of October 1960. It became full operation, that the Constitution of Southern Cameroon will become effectively 1960. And in regard to this picture of this legal document, La Republique du Cameroun is not existed in this picture. Now, provided that whereby under the order of the commissioner has the power to make an appointment, to make any order to do and other things for the purpose of this order, the power may be exercised by the commissioner of Southern Cameroon at the time after the 6th day of September 1960, to such an extent as may, in this opinion, be necessary. Expedient to enable the Constitution established by this order to function as from the 1st of October 1960. This is a legal document speaking on behalf of the reality of Southern Cameroon, yet it did not mention about the neighboring country, Republique du Cameroun. The order in council specified in the first schedule to this order are revoked in so far as they apply to the Southern Cameroons. These apply to the Southern Cameroons. The order of council in council specified the specific schedule to this order are revoked in as far as they apply to the Southern Cameroon. Paragraph 4, Section 3 and 4 of the Nigerian Appeal to Privacy Council, Order in Council of 1955, B0, are revoked insofar that they apply to the Southern Cameroons. Because the British representatives were presiding over in Nigeria, so elected officials of Southern Cameroon will have to travel to Enugu House of Assembly in Nigeria. So the order of this in council simply implies that it does not affect the Nigerian, but it does applicable to the people of Southern Cameroon because they are a separate entity. Now, they established the office of the commissioner. There shall be a commissioner of Southern Cameroons, who shall be appointed by Her Majesty under Her Majesty's signed manual and signed and shall be hold office during Her Majesty's pleasure. The powers and the duty of the commissioner shall have such a powers and duty as are conferred upon him under the order of any other law. Such other power and duties of Her Majesty may be from this time to be pleased assigned to him, subject to the provisions of the order and any other law. which any such power or duty are conferred shall be do or execute all things that belongs to his office, including respect to which he is empowered by this order to act in his discretion. According to such an instruction, if any, Her Majesty from the time to time shall see fit to fight him, provided that the question whether or not the commissioner shall has in any manner accomplished with such instruction shall not be required into by any court. This is referring to Southern Cameroon. This is referring to Southern Cameroon. Now, the oath to be taken by the commissioner. A person appointed to hold the office of the commissioner shall, before entering upon the duties of that office, take and subscribe the oath of allegiance and an oath of duty, execution of his office in the form set out in the second schedule to this order. La Republique is not on this fixture. La Republique is not on this picture. La Republique is not on this identity. And yet the people of Southern Cameroon are suffering from facts that have become fiction, that no one seems to think about it and dwell upon it. Yet our brothers and sisters, mothers, parents, uncles are being killed by a foreign government that has been imposed upon the people of Southern Cameroon because they choose wrong and accept those wrong to be facts and dwell on those wrong to become a physical reality. Welcome to the Ambazonia War of Independence. Who is La Republique in Southern Cameroon territory. Stay tuned, don't go away.
Mais je crois que les pays sont soucieux aujourd'hui d'affirmer leur identité. Et c'est pour ça que nous mettons sur pied un statut spécial qui reconnaît la spécificité de la zone anglophone, mais elle reste dans l'intégrité territoriale du Cameroun. Ça peut on avait la possibilité de les intégrer directement dans le système francophone, qui était celui de la majorité du peuple 80%. Mais je crois que d'affirmer leur identité. Et c'est pour ça que nous mettons sur pied un statut spécial qui reconnaît la spécificité de la zone anglophone, mais elle reste dans l'intégrité territoriale. Ça donne beaucoup de we understand.
Now, let's look at the constitution or the legislative power and procedure established by the House of Assembly of Southern Cameroon. I am going to let's look at the establishment of the House of Assembly in Southern Cameroon. La Republique du Cameroun is not in this picture. La Republique du Cameroun is not in this picture. Section 7. There shall be the House of Assembly of the Southern Cameroon, the subject to the provisions of subsection 6 of these sections. Members of the House of Assembly shall be A. The Deputy Commissioner of the Southern Cameroons and Attorney General of the Southern Cameroons and the Financial Secretary of the Southern Cameroons, who shall be an ex-office to member of the House. 26 elected members. Such special members may be appointed in accordance with the subsection 3 of this section. Such temporary members may be appointed in accordance with subsection 5 of this section. The commissioner acting in this discretion may be instrument under the public seal appointed not more than 2 persons to be special members of the House of Assembly to represent the interests of communities that in this opinion are not otherwise adequately represented in the House. This is from the Southern Cameroon Ambazonia, Southern Cameroon of the 1960 legal constitution. La Republique du Cameroun is not in this picture. Paragraph 4. The commissioner acting in this discretion may be instrument under the public seal declare that a special member of the House of Assembly is, by reason of absence or illness, temporarily unable to discharge his functions as a member of thereupon. Members shall not take part in the proceedings of this House until he is declared in manner aforesaid to be able against the discharge of his functions. So you can see in reality and in critical documentation specifically stated on the Southern Cameroon, and that is why the people of Southern Cameroon cannot function with La Republique du Cameroun, because they do not value the document that written by their own government. Because France, the architect deciding who should be initially, or prior to from Ahijo to Pobia, at any moment when they're about to form their government, they have to take their cabinet government and present to their colonial administrator, France, to decide who has to be finance, who has to be assembly, and before they rush back to confirm those key positions. That is why, when we talking in terms of financial or banking sector, La Republique never meet up with its finances because they have to travel to France. France tell them what to do, and before they can decide on what to do it. So why is it that our people must live under the umbrella, the auspices of a foreign dominion? We have boundary, we have, and it's geographically shown in African map. And today we are being called a province in a foreign country, whom we knew little about them. I think I urge the United States to stand for injustice, against injustice. I urge the United States to stand for injustice. It is imperative that the United States need to stand up against injustice. Because citizens, let me first of all talk about this first. It is imperative that the United States recognize the citizens that were originally from Southern Cameroon territory, that are in the United States, that the people, the family back home recognize the responsibility that their sons and daughters that have migrated to the United States cannot focus on Africa and ignore citizens of Southern Cameroon or any African country that they have no key role to play. The fact that they are not physically in the government of that foreign country, United States need to understand their value and the potential they have to influence whatever happens over there in that country. So United States frequently have meetings with the Israel representative, children that are living here. Why is it that the State Department cannot have a meeting with Southern Cameroon and any other community? It is imperative that the United States develop a mutual understanding that at one point a representative from the State Department meet the citizens of that particular country to see what United States can be of necessary assistance to that community. United States cannot just simply, because they are citizens here, and therefore we abide by the law of the United States. That is true. But the United States must recognize that we have a potential when it comes to policy, what happened back home. It is imperative that the United States make this as a mutual understanding to be able to stay a hands to the various citizens. Because if the children or family back home recognize the potential while we are here, it is imperative that the United States develop that kind of skill to be able to reach out. You know? Because they have influence of what happened over there. United States has its capability that a representative from either State Department or the White House meet routinely, speak, and have their own problems. What are the questions they have? And be able to speak. I understand that this will require a lot of challenges, but providing an opportunity, 30-minute discussion, that if you are a citizen of Southern Cameroon, if you are a citizen of La Republique du Cameroun, United States is opening an important discussion about what can the United States government be of necessary assistance. Until the United States develop this habit and do it habitually, it is imperative. It's not that the United States should focus only on the powerful nations, Britain, Russia, Germany, Canada, and all those influential countries. United States also need to come down to the ground level and be able to speak and understand how the people are feeling. It's not just coming, walking, and paying bills and this. We have interest of what happened over there. It is imperative that the United States and give an opportunity and understand how the United States can collaborate in the area of interest. The United States has the ability to do so. Because if the United States starts reaching out to the people whom citizens are basically here in these great nations, I think to understand the bottom of their problems, it's not just the government, because the government might not represent exactly what is factual. How can the United States bridge that gap between the citizens that are living here and those back home and join collaborations? This is an effective and imperative. I think the United States has more homework to do than just consuming. It is very, very crucial. And this I am saying, it is very important that the United States recognize this as a matter of urgency. Imagine that we are watching the democratic time unfolded here in the United States, and we watch what is happening back in Africa. The pain and the feeling that we have. And we understand that the United States has the ability and the capability to do something about it. And to do something is to create an environment that people can be able to talk, question, and ask. It's not just like their State Department, they select a few journalists and they sit and then they talk about them, they answer one few questions. That opportunity should be given to other countries. It's not just a selected few journalists to come there and ask questions. Extend to the community of different countries and provide them, if United States is, what can United States do more than what they are currently doing? And that is to provide that kind of opportunity that one can be able to ask questions in an open mind, not selected a few individuals, then give them moral authority, and they will always be at the State Department or at the White House, and just simply, and then you rush down. Bring down to a certain level and give opportunity for smaller countries so that they also have problems that the United States can do, and that prevent the future block of problems. But anyway, that was my own little bit of it that I just talked to the State Department and its White House. But however, let me go back again to the injustice mainly upon the people of Southern Cameroon. This is a constitution of Southern Cameroon. In this constitution, there is nowhere in this constitution that La Republic has influence over Southern Cameroon. Why is it that we have been downgraded to become a province in a foreign country, La Republique du Cameroun? Quite amazing. It is quite amazing. But anyway, let's...
On avait la possibilité de nous intégrer directement dans le système francophone qui était celui de la majorité du peuple. Je crois que les pays sont soucieux aujourd'hui d'affirmer leur identité et c'est pour ça que nous mettons sur pied un statut spécial qui reconnaît la spécificité de la zone anglophone, mais elle reste dans l'intégrité territoriale du Cameroun. Ça donne beaucoup de progrès.
Please, if you, we understand.
the destroy of Southern Cameroon heritage is a well-calculated, orchestrated by France, La Republique du Cameroun, because of the mineral deposit in Southern Cameroon territory. They call. Let's look at the two options. Do you opt for an independent? An independence, which means you become an independent nation. So we supposed to be two equal identities, sit on the same table and discuss matters of mutual benefit of the same table of equal level. La Republique did not come as a controller of Southern Cameroon. They come of a mutual two countries sitting on the same table, discuss things of mutual respect. Southern Cameroon has its own prime minister and head of government with its parliament. La Republique, they have theirs. How did it become that Southern Cameroon become a province in a foreign country? That is something I couldn't figure it out. Southern Cameroon become a province in a foreign country that has no jurisdiction over its control. It is quite amazing how one can see the world turn upside down and become irrelevant. It is quite amazing. It is quite amazing. A sovereign nation become a province in a foreign nation, La Republique du Cameroun. Ça c'est terrible. It is quite amazing. It is quite amazing. A sovereign country with its own prime minister, head of government, become a province in a foreign country, and yet the world sees it as a normal. No, it is not normal. It is not. Absolutely, it is not normal. It is not. It is not. Let's look at us. There is one thing I started talking about, the Zelensky. It is quite amazing for all Ambazonians that are watching this. You know, if we all learn from facts, fictions, reality, what is happening and what is happening within our own environment. At the current, we saw what is happening in Ukraine. One thing we see for sure is the leadership skill that demonstrated by the president of Ukraine. And the people of Ukraine are on board with the leader of the Ukraine, and they speak in one voice. They understand each other's. They understand the common tone in which they are fighting for. There is not what they call the black legs in Ukraine. It's about the sovereignty of Ukraine. If you speak of member of parliament of Ukraine, they speak about their sovereign state oath. You speak of any other body of Ukraine, they speak about the state oath. It is very unfortunate when you see citizens of Southern Cameroon that are well educated, very intelligent, and yet when you look at the level of intelligence, they are totally mind freeze. Because they can't stand up for reality. They can't stand up for facts. They understand the truth, but yet they ignore it because they choose the wrong and because they are afraid to speak up for immoral that is being inflicted upon their own people and the world community at large. And yet they don't want to stand up and say, no, it is wrong. It is morally wrong. And our people need some freedom. Freedom, liberty. At the beginning of this war, I spoke that there are certain categories of people that come into this war. Those for personal interest. And those with personal interest, they have little or nothing to eat for themselves. And so they look this as an opportunity to enrich themselves rather than the goal in and objectives in which they are standing for. There are some that have no little or no food on the table. There are some that are fighting genuinely. And when you relate it to what is going on in Ukraine, now you can have the moral structure. Because when the leader of Ukraine cried to the international community, the voice is a unique voice. It's a familiar voice that comes from one single person that reflects the tune of what the people deserve. I think it is a matter of urgency that we can learn from there. Now, before I go into matter of urgency, how we can learn, let's look at the European Parliament. The European Parliament is made up of an independent country, a heterogeneous state, a heterogeneous countries of Europe. But their main leadership of focus is the European Parliament that speaks on behalf of the body of Europeans as in general, and the NATO alliance, which is the military wing, the NATO. If there is an armament that was supposed to be supplied to Ukraine, they provide it through a leadership, and that leadership is the United States. And you cannot see those nations criticizing. Instead, they provide a unified platform that they can be able to communicate to each other and agree on how they can move forward, supply armament to provide an opportunity for Ukraine to defend its sovereign territory. It should have been a tool of learning for all of us citizens of Ambazonia to recognize this learning skill that is being demonstrated. How can we demonstrate this ability? We can demonstrate by creating a form or a platform. What is a platform? A platform that a certain individuals, whether you're from Cho Ayaba, you're from Sako, or you're from Seseko, the unique structure have its leaders, and these leaders will discuss matters of very common interest that when they present as a unique voice, it becomes an instrument to be dwelled upon without insulting one another. I think I made my point clear. But before we can do that, each group, each association need to teach its own group. And this, whom I am referring to, is what they call the surrogate. The surrogacy are setting arms, just like a soldier arm. They are ready to attack because you mentioned something. They need to develop a skill of mutual tolerance and be able to recognize the differences. Because once you recognize the differences that exist between your leadership and the other person's leadership, but you keep your door open so that both of you can have an inner discussion with respect to the sovereign territory of Southern Cameroon. You should be able to communicate. If someone is calling you, don't just ignore and say, oh, he's from Sako, oh, he's from Siseko, he's from this. keep your door open, because for Southern Cameroon to be effectively destroy and disarm La Republique du Cameroun, it requires joint understanding among all the citizens of Southern Cameroon, even whatever across. Because the more we have a unified platform, the more deranged La Republique becomes. But if we decide to fight among ourselves, guess what? We give the opportunity to La Republique to crisscross into our territory and destroy our property. I think it's time we need to develop, keep our phone line open, to be able to communicate, to understand our own personal egoistic thinking, and be able to talk with someone with an open mind. An open mind, irrespective of what we disagree upon. And for those who are eating on the plate of La Republique, you are eating on the wrong plate, because there will be a time you shall recount why you did what you did, because it's a matter of time. Fellow brothers and sisters, I am going to just leave it here, but I'm going to continue on this line of thought on the Southern Cameroon questions. I wish you all the rest of your evening, and have a nice day.